are listening to She Leads with Carly, and our guest today is Anna Brailsford. Anna is the CEO of Code First Girls, with one of the largest communities of female tech talent in the UK. Anna shares so many amazing lessons in this episode, including her experience as she transitioned into a senior role inside a male-dominated space, and the importance of going out of your comfort zone. We talk about this a lot, and one particular lesson that I love is the idea to almost force yourself each day to do something that makes you a little uncomfortable. So we talk about this and obviously so much more. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Anna, and welcome to She Leads. I'm so excited to have you on my show. Thank you for coming. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. So, Anna, you are the CEO at Code First Girls, a social enterprise dedicated to transforming tech by really providing the skills, space, and inspiration for women to become kick-ass developers and future tech leaders. So you've really built one of the largest communities of female tech talent in the UK, with a focus of really connecting women to these economic opportunities and jobs in the tech industry. But before Code First Girls, over the years, you've co-founded your own ed tech startup and then was a commercial director of lynda.com, which was bought by LinkedIn for $1.5 billion, which is the fourth largest acquisition in social media history, and is now what we are known as LinkedIn Learning. So that's amazing. So Anna, what I love to do is take me all the way back to University of Edinburgh. You got a degree in English and history. So at this point, how were you imagining your career? What were you thinking? Where did you kind of see the next few years after and during college?
I don't think I picked that university because I necessarily wanted to end up in technology. Although Edinburgh has a really great AI department and a fantastic computer science department, at that time it didn't even cross my mind. I actually wanted to be a writer, which is why I studied English and history. And I think a lot of people would probably say, classic English and history student. There's loads of jokes. I'm sure you've heard it. You're going to be completely useless, do an English degree, and you'll end up with no job prospects. I was very wary of that going into it, but I picked Edinburgh because, quite frankly, at the time it had one of the best art scenes globally. Okay. So Edinburgh has the biggest arts festival in the world. And for a whole month, the whole world comes together and they celebrate plays and literature, music, performing arts. And I was like, this is the place where I need to be. So that actually led me a lot to picking Edinburgh.
Wow. So at this moment, were there people saying, maybe don't choose English and history, or, kind of what was the next step for you? What questions were you asking yourself to say, okay, after university, will be my first job, or this is what I need to go into?
I don't think I gave that much thought, and I think people will be surprised to hear that today, especially given how much we talk about careers and career paths.
Right.
But I think my parents are very much focus on what you love, particularly when it comes to your undergraduate. So I ended up actually converting my degree later on into law. So they've always said to me that that's an option and don't let it necessarily hem you in. So I really wanted to do something because at Edinburgh it's a 4-year undergrad course where I actually loved what I was doing. So I led with my passion. I led with my heart. In all honesty, if you were to say back to my 18-year-old self, get through a computer science degree, I don't even know if I'd want to or could have done. I think a lot of emphasis is placed on what you study as opposed to the skills that you gain that you can then change and relearn later on in life. So, of course, you can change and you can relearn things. But at the time, I didn't go into that thinking, this is going to be my career. This is going to be the rest of my life. I very much led with what I loved.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's the idea where, in the moment, you may not see any type of relation to your career, but you learn skills that you can see, applicable to today, which is awesome. So now walk me through, your career trajectory. Take me a little bit through, getting to lynda.com and then obviously getting acquired by LinkedIn, which is amazing.
So it's worth probably saying that even though I was very artsy at university, my family also have businesses and have had businesses through quite a lot of my teenage years. So I was very business minded, even when I was at university. So I knew I was good with money. I knew I was good with business and with business ideas. I didn't necessarily know how to apply that yet. Okay. So my earliest experiences were actually in my family's business. So, teaching you the basics of this is a product, this is how a product sells, this is profit and loss. There are such fundamental lessons that I think if you learn early on, you get a fantastic start in life. So when I did come out of university, I actually got to the point where I was like, I have enough business knowledge to go into a business right now. And I picked a business that isn't particularly well known, but gave me the best opportunities. And at that time, I was really interested in travel. I was obviously interested in education, started to be interested in technology as well, and how I could broaden my own horizons. So literally picked the company that would take me all over the world, pay me the most at the time to do so. Yeah. And allowed me to work with some amazing kind of, Fortune 500 clients. And that's the company I worked with for a couple of years. And then after that, I started to become more and more well-known in my space. So educational technology is quite a small space. And if you start going down a certain path, you get known for certain things. Okay. And I have no idea why this started to happen, but at the grand old age of 26, for some reason, I was known as somebody that was really good at helping businesses, particularly education businesses, flip from being primarily B2C more towards a B2B model. Wow. And that's exactly the grounds that I was headhunted on by lynda.com. So then I was taken into Lynda. I was hired by the MD at the time from Mia, and it was really funny because I remember thinking at the time, is this happening? Because it was my first sort of big leap into a really well-known brand. They were already doing fantastically well in the US. They were trying to replicate that success in Europe, and they were trying to build out their offering from a primarily B2C offering to a B2B offering. I had to sort of pinch myself, and I was a little bit scared at the time. But a lot of women don't take a leap when they should. And one of the reasons why they don't take a leap is because they have to be absolutely perfect for a role and tick every single box and know that, they've done everything ad infinitum perfectly. And I just got to the point where I was unless you take those risks, unless you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're never going to know if you're going to be able to achieve something. And that's exactly what I did with that role. And it ended up being fantastic. And of course, they got acquired by LinkedIn and we were growing like crazy, which led me to kind of where I am today. So I hope that gives you a bit of an overview.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So I could honestly take this in a couple different directions, but I am really interested in that particular moment where you got that opportunity at lynda.com. And I've actually talked to other guests on my show, and it's interesting the type of that transition from, a junior role or just, regular status to then being a manager or a senior role. And, I've actually talked to some guests who went through, mentally that struggle of transitioning, but also even physically, changing their looks and changing who they are because they thought that's what's needed to fit that role. And so I want to know, did you ever have that, mentally, physically, anything being okay, do I belong? Do I need to change anything about myself?
Of course, because, I got that role, I got a commercial director role, I think I was about 26. I'm in my early 30s now, and I can't tell you how much change you go through in that period. You grow up and you can reflect so much on what you were doing in your sort of 20-year-old self. And I remember genuinely feeling reticence because, the majority of senior managers were male. The majority of leadership were male. And also, there's almost a uniform amongst men, right, in tech companies where they wear that plaid shirt and they wear Levi jeans. And as a woman, you actually you feel like you can't replicate that. You can't fit in. It sounds like a really subtle point, but as a woman, you put a suit on and all of a sudden you're power dressing. But if you dress down too much, you're not commanding enough authority. So literally, you have to find something that works for you. And the first couple of years when you're growing into a senior manager role, what you're doing is you're growing into yourself and you're becoming comfortable with yourself. And I'm at the point now in my 30s where I'm like, no one can ever influence or tell me what to wear, or I'm never going to feel uncomfortable around anyone, because you can just get to the point where you own it. But I remember at the time thinking, oh my God, do I fit in? What do I need to do to get more respect? Are they all of a sudden all going to realize that, I'm not qualified enough for this job, or, not equipped enough? And all of those things go through your mind, and they slowly undermine your confidence in yourself. So that is a learning curve, and everyone has to go through it. But the only way you can do that is, I think, experience it firsthand and sort of embrace it. And, there's no such thing as failure, right? There's only winning and lessons. And if you apply that to when you don't feel confident about something, it lessens the risk. So
yeah, I love that. I love it. I think the winning or lessons, because essentially that is what it is. If you fail, you're learning something. So that's amazing. So given that, do you have advice for anyone, a young professional in their mid-20s who has that opportunity? Because for me, I think it's almost recognizing that you're in an uncomfortable situation, but it's okay. Like, you'll grow. But looking back at your experience, what advice do you have for someone that is going through that transition, or is in an environment where, mainly males in their uniforms and you're kind of just entering in it?
Well, so I said this on we did a big thing with Marie Claire about a week ago. And so many women were asking, like, how do you get over imposter syndrome? Like, what do you do? What techniques have you used in the past? And like, from a very young age, and it's a really good mental trick, I made a deal with myself to push myself out of my comfort zone at least once a day. Even now, like as a CEO in my 30s, I still find a way to push myself out of my comfort zone. And if you make that pact with yourself, you will discover things that you never thought were possible. So number one, like, make a mental, psychological pact with yourself that you're going to do it, and there's no excuses. And the second thing that I would say is,
that's very cool.
Just go for it. Like, I can't even emphasize enough. So in my own organization, I really love it when like a woman in her mid-20s is like future leadership material, and she puts herself forward for that, and she starts taking leadership and autonomy over certain areas. They're exactly the type of people that I love working with, and we just don't have enough female leaders. So go for it, like, push yourself and be around the right people that are going to recognize that and promote that and support that, rather than keep you down.
Okay, so then that brings me to another topic, is finding those right people, finding that amazing circle of either, someone a year ahead of you, 5 years, 10 years. But how do you find them? Like, what's that method to, okay, I look up to this person, and, reaching out, whatever it may be. How do you find those people who are kind of like your champions, essentially?
You just got to throw yourself in, and you're not always going to get it right. I didn't always get it right. You meet a litany of people that don't actually work for you, or working environments that don't work for you. I have come across so many times being told that, you're talented, you're great at what you do, but, you've kind of reached a bit of a glass ceiling. If you feel like that, you need to get out, and you need to do it fairly quickly. And another thing that I would say is, like, we talk about change a lot, and like changing the industry. But sometimes, like, when you're on your own as a woman, like in, say, in an organization, you're trying to reach that next level, and you just feel like you're just constantly getting pushback. Sometimes you can't change a culture, and it's easier to find a culture that actually works for you. It's getting better, but I still think recognizing when something doesn't work for you is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so take me now through, you went, I guess it became LinkedIn and LinkedIn Learning. So when was that moment, or when did the opportunity for Code First Girls come to you, and to be the CEO? As you said, like, you're in your early 30s, being a CEO, that's not a common, pretty impressive and pretty amazing. So how did this whole process happen for you, and what made you say, okay, this is kind of my time to move on?
I think with Code First Girls, it's quite a unique opportunity. So it combines, several things that give my life meaning. So education, for one of them. I've always believed in education. Education is the way to kind of better yourself.
Yeah.
I really believe in economic opportunity as well. So trying to provide education to help women into those opportunities. I think tech is the future. And I think learning these skills is the best way to provide women with a platform for the future. And ultimately being able to do all of that and essentially give the education away. I mean, I was like, well, hang on, we give this education away? Like that's just so rare. And you hardly come across that as a proposition, to have an organization dedicated to the free education of women and to putting those women into organizations. Like, it seems to me such an obvious solution, but there's so much emphasis, I think, on how much profit can certain companies turn over, or I don't know, to education is an incredibly expensive commodity, right? So we took a completely different viewpoint and said, okay, what if we made almost everything we do completely free, and then work backwards from there, and then work to get women into companies and get the companies to foot the bill. Because at the end of the day, companies have actually created or had a part to play in this problem. They need more diverse workforces. They need more women in tech and leadership positions. So how do we get the companies to help fix the problem, as opposed to putting the economic and financial burden onto the individual women themselves? So that is a completely unique play. And, I know the price of education. I've seen it time and time again. So I think just in terms of its positioning and what it can actually do, the impact it can have on individual women, there's no sort of satisfaction I've had to date like that, in terms of sort of walking away and saying we've really, really transformed those individuals' lives. You can't say that in many roles.
Yeah. And what would you say, so at Code First Girls, what would you say is the biggest barrier, the biggest challenge that is, getting women to enter tech, and not only enter tech, but enter tech in a, full stack developing role, or enter tech and be a software engineer? Because that's kind of a whole new world, it seems like. So what's the biggest challenge you guys face?
There's so many, but I ultimately like the education. So many women aren't entering these roles because they don't have access to the education, and that's really a crying shame. So there's only about, so in the UK, about 19% of those that study computer science are women. So there's such a small pool, and it's so expensive now. We're talking, for a degree of that nature, £40,000, or the equivalent in dollars. I don't know my conversion rates at the moment. $60,000.
I don't either right now.
It's the same in the US, right? So the US for years have had a much more kind of a system it's much more of a business. Education is much more of a business than I think it has been in the UK. And over the last 10 years, that environment's really started to change, where now education is a big business. And if you look at global trends, the amount of money that's spent on education just increases every single year, and that's particularly being driven by Asian markets, and people investing more and more in their education for their children and the future generation. So the sheer cost of education is unbelievable. A typical boot camp for what we do for free, so our 12-week intensive courses where you get a job at a company in data or software, typically would cost a woman around about £10,000 if they went to a regular provider.
Right.
So the level of what we're offering is quite substantial. Or they get tied into 2-year contracts, where they're forced to give a percentage of their salary with a lot of providers and not pay the market rate for years. That's another way that a lot of providers monetize education. So we're kind of one of the first to say, no, actually, we are going to give this away, and we're going to try our best to get you a job at the end of the process. So the cost of education is prohibitive. Also confidence, helping women to take that first step, and
so
providing them with
how do you deal with that particular point? Because confidence is such like it's kind of the theme of what we're talking about, but it's such a mental block, and it's how do they address that? Is it just, doing it more, practicing more, realizing that, you are good enough, or how do you address that particular aspect of becoming a future tech leader?
Well, it really depends on what you want to do. And I always say, like, even though we're code first girls, you don't have to be a coder to enter tech. So, if you do want to be a coder, like, for example, building confidence up around HackerRank is a really fantastic way to know that you're going to actually get through the assessment process. So it's one thing learning all the skills, but actually being able to apply the skills under time conditions and create methodologies and strategies to help deploy those skills and control your anxiety at the same time is quite another. So women traditionally fall at the assessment stage. It's not even at the skills stage or the application stage, it's the assessment stage. So how do you build specific confidence around that? Yeah. How do you inspire women with other role models in the space that might be a couple of years in? And if you're becoming like a leader, I think it's very much about making other female leaders visible. How do we inspire the next generation to say, hang on, there are some fantastic female leaders out there in technology. We always have this thing, like when we go to universities. I was at the University of Greenwich not so long ago, and I said to the lecture theatre, I was like, okay, who can name like a famous male in tech? And like everyone put their hands up, and it was like boom, 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 the whole room. Right. I was like, okay, now do the same, but for a woman. And unfortunately, there was like three to four hands up. So female leadership in tech is just as important as getting more of the kind of technical skills in as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's one of my, kind of bringing my young perspective, but also highlighting these incredible females. So that's, a big goal. So anyway, and so now tell me kind of how your experience has been as the CEO of Code First Girls. How was it different than what you expected being the CEO, or how was that transition? Because, that's kind of the top of the top.
How is it different? It's like having your own business, or is having your own business essentially. You have a lot of responsibility. It's funny, when you're a CEO, you literally play probably 20 different parts in a single day, right? So you have got to be so agile and so flexible. And that can go all the way from like product to how you're going to market your product, to dealing with big clients, to doing presentations like this. I've done all of those things just today. So that is a lot of responsibility, because you have got to be super flexible, but ultimately the buck stops with you. So you are literally all like responsible for payroll as well. You're responsible for ensuring that the people in your organization gets paid, or there's enough liquidity to ensure that people are getting paid. So it's a lot, but the level of freedom is also unbelievable. The ability to take a vision and make it into something tangible and to start seeing results is very, very rare, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so now, looking at your whole career, and then obviously getting a degree in English and history. So obviously, like, there's that stigma of, a non-technical degree, there's no way you can go into tech. Like, there's that idea where you have to get a technical degree and then it's much easier. So take me through that thought process and kind of where your head's at about that, and then also how it's helped you.
Well, like, hands up fully, I don't think I could be a developer. And I don't think that I could be a data scientist. I don't know if that's where necessarily my true passions lie. And I think there'll be so many people that would be better than me at that specifically. However, what I've absolutely loved is leading tech businesses, creating tech products, or working for big Silicon Valley companies. So one thing that I would say, for example, about English and history, although it gets a lot of stick, it's incredibly useful if a lot of your job is about people and building rapport and being able to analyze situations and being able to articulate a vision, which really, if you're a CEO, a big part of your job is being able to articulate vision and to bring people along that journey. And for that, I actually think there's probably nothing better than English and history. So it really depends on where you see yourself in the tech industry. You don't necessarily have to have a technical degree to lead a business in tech.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. And okay, so Anna, now, you know, kind of what I love to do at the end of my episode. So first of all, I've loved talking to you and really thank you for coming onto my show. But as a last bit of questions, so I'm going to add one actually for you, which is, you know, you mentioned every day you do something that's out of your comfort zone. So I want to know, what is that thing that you've done today that's out of your comfort zone?
Oh, it's a really, really, really good question. And you've really put me on the spot there.
I know I have. I apologize.
Well, so it was it's awful. It's Shrove Tuesday, but I always call it Pancake Day. So it was Pancake Day yesterday in the UK. Okay. I'm not sure if it's the same in Israel and the US. Is it the same?
I don't think so. But
anyway, Tuesday. So basically on Tuesday, like everyone makes pancakes. There is some like religious significance to it, but all the kids now just call it Pancake Day. Okay. So this morning I definitely wanted to have pancakes for breakfast. So I don't know if that's definitely pushing myself out of my comfort zone.
I love it. Amazing. And so, okay, the last two questions is, tell me, what's another passion of yours that's just completely unrelated to any work you do, just another passion that you love to do?
Oh, that's really hard. I still love writing, so I still try and write as much as possible. It's quite hard now because we write so much, like for articles and stuff like that. We have like literally teams of writers. So originally when I started out, I used to write all my own stuff, and now it's got to the point where if I did that, I'd probably explode. So we have a team of writers that, you know, help write and put our stuff and our articles together. But I still love keeping my hand in with fiction.
Very cool.
What else? I love travel. I absolutely love travel. So the lockdowns have been really difficult for me. Yeah. I got incredibly itchy feet and would absolutely love to go abroad, but that's not going to happen. So yeah,
I know. Hopefully soon. So I agree, though. Okay, and then the final question, which I love to do. I don't even know if you know this, so you maybe put on the spot again, but we'll see. So, what's a weird hidden talent of yours? So, a talent that no one really knows about. And so, what I'll do is I go first, and basically, I throw blueberries in my mouth, okay, and I catch them. So the podcast version, they can't see it, but they'll hear the success. Okay, so here we go. There we go. It's my signature at the end of each episode. Like that. It's okay. It takes quite a time to practice.
Very cool. Something that people don't know. I love accents. So originally, I probably started off with a very different accent than I have right now because of where I'm from. So I love doing accents. And sometimes I've even, you know, with my sister in different countries, particularly when we were younger, we had the ability to pretend like we were from different countries, and people would actually just believe when we were in that country that we were from that country. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah,
okay, so what's your favorite accent to do?
Oh, definitely. So where I'm from, which is definitely, and I don't know if you know, so I'm from Liverpool originally, so my favorite accent is definitely Scouse. Okay. I don't know if you know what that means. It means from Liverpool, but that's my favorite accent.
I don't. In terms of Liverpool, I know the football club, and that's the extent, to be honest. But okay, that sounds great. Awesome. Okay, well, Anna, I would tell you to, give me a bunch of different accents, but for time's sake, I'll say thank you. And it's been so great talking to you, and really just so many incredible lessons I've learned. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for coming on She Leads.
Thank you so much.